On a Bitcoin standard, holding real estate will be extremely painful. And in this video, I want to explain to you what exactly I mean by this. Let's get started. Chris Johnson on YouTube made this really great video. This is his channel. He made this really great video explaining how he structures his Bitcoin portfolio. So in this video, he explained the dollar standard versus the Bitcoin standard. So on the dollar standard, you can see this chart here. Unfortunately, I can't just find a picture of it, but go watch this video if you want to. In this video, he explains how the financial foundation of most people and of his was his primary residence. So he used to save in cash. He would speculate, like let's say, gamble on random single stocks. Then he would invest for the future. So he would build his business. He would buy stocks. From what I know, he buys a lot of options. He buys real estate, and then the house is what keeps him stable. So the house gives him that financial foundation that keeps him from sinking. The house is the foundation, then the investments on top of the stock market, the index funds, then the speculation, like let's say GameStop, all these random things that people buy because they think they're going to go up a lot. And then you have savings, which is the smallest part of it. And you get to savings after you have everything else dealt with. So the foundation is the house. Then the top of everything, the I guess the peak of this pyramid here is the saving. So the dollars that he would save. And then around the middle of the video, he showed this chart, which showed you how he changed his financial structure because of Bitcoin. So instead of the savings being at the top, the savings are now the foundation. Basically, the savings used to be the cherry on top of the sundae before. Now they're the ice cream. Now they're the thing that everything is built on top of. And that completely makes sense to me because Bitcoin is something that you can't change, something you can't manipulate. Bitcoin stays the same no matter what. Bitcoin is not volatile. One Bitcoin equals to one Bitcoin. The value of a dollar is constantly changing. The value of a house is constantly changing. The value of really everything else is constantly changing. The companies that you buy could easily change the product that they sell. Their customers could change. All of that could change, but Bitcoin does not change. Bitcoin stays exactly the same no matter what, because that's the point of Bitcoin. No matter what, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. Nobody can change that. Nobody can stop that from happening. Nobody can make it so that there's going to be 42, 52, 100 million. And this is because the people who own Bitcoin are the ones who basically regulate it. They're the ones who run the nodes that ensure that the Bitcoin protocol continues running the way it's supposed to. There's no exploits where people can create free coins. So we know that over time, Bitcoin is going to be that stable foundation. And then on top of that, you can do whatever you want to. To be honest, it doesn't really make any sense to me to buy rental properties, to buy index funds if you're investing on a Bitcoin standard, because neither of those will give you a higher return than Bitcoin. So your investments should probably be in yourself. Maybe you can start a business, do something that you love doing. You can create value. You can sell that value to other people and they're willing to pay you for it. So what you're doing is you're putting your time into a business which will potentially give you a higher return than your Bitcoin. So if you put in $100 and you get back $1,000, your return on that investment, your business, let's say, would be 900%. And you would have outpaced Bitcoin if that was in the term of 1 year and Bitcoin only gave you a 50% return. The thing about everything on top of Bitcoin, the investments, the speculation, is that they're not as stable as Bitcoin. There's a possibility that you could end up with a zero return if you were to start a business. If you were to start a YouTube channel, it may not make any money. If you were to start a bakery, you might lose money. Speculation is just not knowing what the future return of something will be, the future result of something. That's why everything that's speculative is on top of Bitcoin, because with Bitcoin, you know exactly what you hold, you know exactly what you own, and that Bitcoin is going to be there no matter what. As long as you take care of it, as long as you make sure that you take care of your seed phrase, you buy a cold wallet, you put that Bitcoin in that cold wallet, and you make sure that nobody can get access to your seed phrase. As long as you take care of it, that Bitcoin will be there 10, 20, 30 years from now. If you were to bury that Bitcoin in the ground, it'll still be there as long as nobody finds it, as long as that wallet works, as long as you have the seed phrase, it'll be there no matter what. While on the other hand, your business may not, your stocks may not, your individual stocks, even though they may outpace Bitcoin, they may not be there when you actually need them because all of those things are constantly changing. the demand for whatever product that business sells may not be there anymore. The executives may do something wrong that ends up with that business losing a lot of money. So those businesses and those speculative vehicles may not be there. And something that I really respect about Chris is that he's willing to admit, even though he has a really big house, a really nice house, where he lives is not part of his financial decisions. It's not part of his financial foundation because where he lives is a choice. It's a lifestyle choice. It's a way for him to support his family. It's a cost. It's a liability. It's not an investment. It's not a savings vehicle. On the US dollar standard, on the fiat standard, we've been taught to believe that our house is our primary way of saving for the future. Most people see housing that way. They see housing as a way for you to be able to sustain your life in retirement. Let's say you need to pay for things when you do retire, when you stop working. You can just sell your house, you can downgrade, and then you can use the proceeds from that as your retirement savings. But he completely flipped that. He made where he lives, his primary residence, completely separate from his financial pyramid. And to me, this is really important because I think a lot of wealthy people like Chris are going to start thinking this way. It's like I said before, Bitcoin doesn't change. Before Bitcoin, people applied that to real estate. With Bitcoin, there's only a limited supply cap. There's a certain set of rules that can't be changed. It's incorruptible software. With real estate, people used to think of it as demand for housing will always be there. There will always be people needing shelter. So owning houses means that you get a consistent, uninterrupted cash flow for as long as you own that house, as long as you can maintain that house. The reason why Bitcoin flips that on top of its head, the reason why it completely destroys that theory is because on a Bitcoin standard, we're going to see more and more technology to build more houses much faster because people are going to want to create value somehow to get Bitcoin. If you have Bitcoin and you don't have a house, somebody out there is going to be willing to build a house or to build a condo and to sell you access to that condo so they can access your Bitcoin. The difference between Bitcoin and owning real estate as an investment or as a savings tool is that, again, like I said, Bitcoin supply can't be changed, but the supply of housing can be changed at any time. In the near future, we're going to see a lot more technology that makes it so we can build houses faster and we can fulfill the demand for real estate, for housing. So I think that a lot of people are going to figure this out. They're going to see that housing is not the foundation that we used to think it was. Housing is not a way to save for the future. Housing is actually a liability. It costs you in time, it costs you in maintenance, it costs you in repairs. All of that is going to contribute to very wealthy people selling their houses, just like Chris. Chris sold rental properties to buy Bitcoin. And again, this is what a lot of people are going to do. Chris is usually really great at making decisions that create more value. And I guarantee you that in the next few years, there are going to be a lot more millionaires, a lot more billionaires who want to diversify out of housing because housing isn't as stable as people claim that it is. The supply and demand of housing can be changed by a small group of people called the Federal Reserve. If they increase interest rates, fewer people want houses because they can't borrow money to buy houses anymore. If they decrease interest rates, more people will want houses, and you'll see that the price of housing is going to skyrocket. On top of that, property taxes can be increased, so your cost of actually owning that house can increase massively, meaning you have to go to your job even more just to make ends meet. And I don't personally like that way of living. I don't like to be tied to a job so I can pay for my life. Instead, I would rather make decisions that may seem risky in the short term, but really end up paying off over the long term. And Bitcoin is one of those decisions. Bitcoin is one of those asymmetrical opportunities where if you put a certain amount into it, it'll eventually give you way more back. Housing is not like that. Housing may be profitable. It may give you more dollars over the long term, but in terms of Bitcoin, you're going to see that your housing is going to decrease in price. It's going to keep falling until houses are as close to zero as possible in terms of Bitcoin. Another really great graphic that Chris posted here was this one right here. Dollars per houses is going up exponentially while Bitcoin per houses is falling exponentially. And this is something that I've posted multiple times on my channel. I've shown you multiple charts on this. You can see here, if you save in dollars, life gets more expensive. If you save in Bitcoin, life gets less expensive. I think these are concepts that a lot of people are going to understand over the next few years, and they're going to follow them to a T. They're going to get rid of their investment properties, they're going to buy Bitcoin. You're going to see that over time, the price of housing in terms of dollars does continue to go up. But in terms of Bitcoin, it keeps falling because at the current prices, most people can't pay in cash if they have Bitcoin. So if let's say you wanted to buy a house today, it'll cost you 4 or 5 Bitcoin. How many people have 4 or 5 Bitcoin? Over time, the number of people who actually have 4 or 5 Bitcoin to afford to buy a house is going to decrease because as Bitcoin's price goes up, fewer and fewer people will have 4 or 5 Bitcoin, and buying a house will be unaffordable for the majority of people. I'd say 99.99% of people. So what will have to happen is people will have to lower the price of housing in terms of Bitcoin, or Bitcoin's price is going to have to go up because if people don't want to give away their Bitcoin, then of course demand will not be fulfilled and the price will have to go up in order to fulfill demand. The people who want Bitcoin are going to have to offer more in exchange for that Bitcoin. So if you own a house and you want Bitcoin for it, let's say today's worth 5 Bitcoin, at some point people aren't going to be willing to give you 5 Bitcoin for your house. You'll have to sell that house for 4 Bitcoin. Then you'll have to offer it for 3, then 2, then 1 Bitcoin. Eventually, you're going to see that houses cost less than a million Satoshis, which is 0.01 Bitcoin. So the way that I see it, it's much smarter to get rid of your real estate before the price of a house falls below 1 Bitcoin. Eventually, it will. A few years ago, the median house price in the US was thousands of Bitcoin. Then it fell to hundreds of Bitcoin. Then it fell to tens of Bitcoin. Today, it's in the mid single digit range at 4 to 5 Bitcoin. Eventually, you're going to see that the price of a house is going to fall below a million Satoshis. It'll be 0.01 Bitcoin to buy a median house in the US. But keep in mind, again, that the 0.01 Bitcoin is going to increase in price in terms of dollars as well because dollars can be created out of nothing. If you study Bitcoin, it becomes really easy to understand why Chris has posted what he has, why he talks about what he does, why he says that his house used to be the foundation and now it's not even part of his financial plan. Housing is a liability. It's going to cost you a lot of money to buy a house and then to maintain it. It's going to also cost you a lot of money to sell that house if you don't want to live in it anymore. There's going to be realtor fees, there's going to be property taxes, there's going to be land transfer taxes, all kinds of taxes that are associated with real estate, meaning that you have to make way more money on that property in order to just break even. So change your perspective, change the lens that you're looking at the world with. Most people are looking at the world with a fiat lens. In terms of fiat, the thing that goes up in price the fastest is the one that people want. But Bitcoin is changing that. In terms of fiat, Bitcoin is the thing that's going up in price the fastest and the most consistently. As more wealthy people follow Chris's path and they want to get rid of their rental properties to buy Bitcoin, you're going to see that if you're going based on the old way of Chris's thinking, so with real estate being at the base, the primary residence being the foundation of your, I guess, financial pyramid, you're going to see that that foundation gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and it doesn't support you in retirement the way that you expect that it will. If you have a rental property portfolio worth 10 Bitcoin today, eventually it'll be worth 5 Bitcoin, then it'll be worth 3 Bitcoin, then it'll be worth 1 Bitcoin. So if you can get ahead of selling that rental property for Bitcoin before the majority of wealthy people figure it out, I think you're going to do really well for yourself. To just put that into perspective, let's say you sell that property for 10 Bitcoin today. Eventually, the price of that property is going to go down to 1 Bitcoin. You can sell your Bitcoin and you can probably buy 5 to 10 properties after taxes are dealt with. So if you make that decision to sell that rental property, the decision that most people aren't willing to make today, they want to hold on to the rental properties because they want consistent cash flows. If you make that decision that most people aren't willing to make today, eventually you'll be able to make decisions that most people can't make in their wildest dreams.